Hi, this is Josh of the Frame Doctor in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, here to talk to you today about why your bagger handles poorly. So a lot of it stems from vehicle alignment and just overall neglect and maintenance that sometimes gets missed. So we'll go over that today just to give you a brief look on some of the things you can look to get addressed, or have a professional like me do an alignment and check everything out for you and get you going straight down the road. So we'll start today with improper neck bearing torque. So there's a specific torque on your neck bearings that gives the right amount of tension on it so that you don't get a shimmy. So newer bikes, Mount Rushmore, and later have a steering stem that is two-piece and gets squished together. I have seen them fail at 14,000 miles. The service interval, in order to have them greased, we just replace them, because if you're going that far into the bike, why not put new ones in? And every one that I've ever seen has chatter marks on it and is bad. So that is something to look for. Older bikes are a little bit better, but you still need to keep up on your torque and your fall away procedure on services. You can still grease those bearings with a Zerk on the older stuff, so that keeps them a little bit fresher longer. Something also to consider is when you add weight in your front end on your fairing, specifically Street Glide models. You don't have it as much with Rushmore because that weight is distributed on the frame and not the actual triple trees. So when you add speakers, amplifiers, stuff like that in the front fairing, it causes more weight and changes the factory OEM spec to change. So you might have to go a little bit tighter on stuff like that, including when you increase the horsepower. Sometimes they like to be a little bit on the tighter side. So the OEM Harley factory spec isn't always the answer. Next would be bearing failures, like your swing arm, your wheel bearings, stuff like that. When they start to go out, can cause stackable tolerance issues and then cause a lot of slop in your rear end or even in your front end and cause a wobble as well. Tires, please keep your tires at the proper spec on PSI. Even a pound or two under can cause massive cupping in the tires and then cause to a shimmy and maybe even tire failure on some of the cheaper tires. You can see chunking, stuff like that. I've seen newer tires from certain manufacturers we won't go into be bad right off the bat. You cut a new set of tires, well, it's got new tires. Well, the tire is bad and needs to be warranted. So have that checked out. Going after that, your suspension setup. On a bagger, so many people like to increase the speakers in the bags or just luggage overall. There is a weight specification for your tour pack and for your saddlebags. When you exceed that, it specifically says in your owner's manual that it will cause handling problems because you're lightening up that front end and taking weight off of it, and then your suspension is already overworked and cannot compress and rebound. So then you're lightening up your front end, and every time you take off under power, it gets light and you get a shimmy. That being said, if you have a heavier passenger or heavier rider even, can cause handling issues as well. So you would have to bump up your spring preload or get a heavy duty spring from the manufacturer of the aftermarket suspension that you have, or if you have stock, go to aftermarket, and that will eat up a lot of that issues, because if you have stock weight springs and are not stock weight, you are overworking your suspension and inducing a lot of extra wear on the bike, on yourself, on the ride, and overall just poor handling conditions. So after that is what I do professionally, is a vehicle alignment. So after 2008, your powertrain, your engine, transmission, and primary, as it sits inside of the frame and the cradle, is no longer adjustable. So there is no horizontal or vertical adjustment in it anymore. Back 08 and earlier, you were able to adjust that out to take up for some of the manufacturing discrepancies in the frames. Or as time went on and rubber mounts started to wear and the motors would shift, you could adjust that back to true. Having your front and rear axle 90 degrees parallel to the ground is incredibly important to how well your bike handles, and that is what you are adjusting when you're doing your vehicle alignment. So what we do on Anything '09 and later is at that front joint, heim joint, that is not a heim joint, it's just a solid rod now. We replace that with an adjustable heim joint, and we do your vertical alignment. We make sure your rear axle is 90 degrees to your front and true to your frame. We also do a horizontal alignment, and we can move your motor over to correct your horizontal alignment, how your rear wheel sits, because all that matters when you have a front wheel with, you don't have frame damage, is 90 degrees to the ground and wants to go perfectly straight or go the way that it is intended to be going, and then your rear wheel is fighting it, and every time that the suspension gets upset or you change lanes or something like that, your front wheel is pulling that bike in the direction it wants to go, but the rear wheel is fighting it in the opposite direction. That's when you get that wobble and that uncertainty in the rear end. That all can be corrected. There's no reason that your bike should be handling poorly. It is merely a design flaw on Harley's end, maybe, but nothing that can't be corrected aftermarket at a shop that cares. Now, you ask yourself, I've had my bike to a Harley dealership 5 times and they can't figure it out. Well, why is that? Harley dealerships, me myself, I had worked at a few in most of my career, are not equipped to handling situations the way that we are. We are specialized service. So, that being said, Harley makes their money on oil changes, tires, engine builds, installs. Diags, they lose money on, and their flat rate technicians do not like doing them, so they will usually, I can't speak for all of them because there's a lot of great mechanics out there, they will rush through a service, be like, hey, I don't feel a issue when there is an issue. So, that being said, bring it to somebody who's specialized in it, who does it every single day. We will make sure that it's not leaving our shop handling poorly. So if you have any questions, want to book an appointment, get your bike riding great, give me a call. My number is on my Instagram or on Google. I'm in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, and if you live elsewhere, you can go to Rack and Pull Industries on his website. His name is Al. He has a list of everybody else who has a shop that uses his equipment. So look up there, give them a call. Have a great day. Thank you for listening.